Atlantis as a kingdom that was wiped out thousands of years ago is much more possible. Hi there, sorry for the short hiatus, but I'm back and I'm ready to get back into the swing of things. We left off with the Cahills after they found the latest ingredient in Troy, or what is modern day Turkey, and they're off to Tunisia for the next ingredient. In London, J. Rutherford Pierce is speaking to his henchmen after they botched their previous mission and let the Cahills get away. They do inform Pierce that the kids are on a plane bound for Tunisia, the former site of Carthage. He isn't sure what to make of that yet. He decides to motivate the men by feeding them poison candy and telling them if they want the antidote, they'll complete their mission.
I hate you so much.
In Rome, Amy Cahill sets a dumpster on fire to cause a distraction while she runs for the plane on the tarmac. She joins Ian and Dan, and they're soon joined by Jonah, Jake, and Hamilton bearing snacks. Amy's been acting weird since seeing a newspaper headline that showed images of Atticus, Jake, Pony, Ian, Jonah, and Hamilton, along with Amy and Dan, and ties them all together in a criminal conspiracy. This time around, Pierce is not holding back with them. In Delaware, at Trilon Pharmaceuticals, Nellie Gomez is being interviewed for a junior position. The interviewer calls Ian Cabral, who provides a fake reference for an undercover Nellie. They hire her on the spot. The Cahills and company land in Tunis, and Amy wants the others to leave her and Dan and go back to Attleboro. She wants them to provide research while the Cahill siblings retrieve the ingredients on their own. Jonah and Hamilton will take Tikal, Ian and Pony are to take Angkor, and Jake and Atticus are to stay on Silphium. Jake wants to stay, and Dan is in agreement when Amy storms off the plane. Dan follows her. She agrees to allow them to stay until they're done at least. Before the others leave, Pony gives Amy her mail. Inside it, she finds a note from Sammy, who was able to produce a vial of the serum. She hides it from the others, because, naturally.
Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind?
In Tunis, after checking into their room, Atticus takes the others on a tour along the Avenue Habib Bourguiba? Sorry if I butchered that. I'm trying my best here. He tells them about the legendary origins of Carthage. Jake is still bitter Amy wanted him to leave. Amy asks about Silphium, but Atticus isn't sure of its connection. She mentions Olivia was told by Leonardo da Vinci to look for it on the island of the Athenian. As they head into the Medina, they spot a suspicious figure.
Don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious, don't be suspicious.
When Amy suggests they retreat, Jake refuses to listen and storms off. Amy and Dan chase after them, Atticus trailing behind. They rush to cut off Jake before he reaches the figure. As they reach an alley, they run into Jake and the man. They see a flash and instinctively assume it's a gun. Amy puts herself between Jake and the gunman as more men flood into the alley, cornering the gang. They have no choice but to fight, but as they do, the man pulls out a camera. It's paparazzi and the situation does not look good. They flee in a taxi that Atticus hailed for them. They don't go back to their hotel. Instead, they visit Dr. Rosenblum. Jake and Atticus ask him about Silphium. He says there isn't much to say other than it was grown in Cyrene, modern-day Libya. When Atticus drops Olivia's notebooks and their father reads the name Cahill, he loses it, going off about how he doesn't want them around them. They're a bad influence, etc. But then he sees something in the book that gets his attention and tells them to leave for Rome tonight before rushing out. None of them are sure what to make of it, but Amy says she will go to the Carthage ruins to look around while the others head back to the room. She leaves before any of them can say anything. Somewhere else, Kara and Jolt Pierce spar as their father watches on a security camera. Jolt cheats in the end to win, and Rutherford berates Kara for whining about rules and to get good. Amy is almost immediately lost, having a taxi driver drop her off in some small town. Jake finds her somehow, but Amy is still upset with him. She leads them to the beach, still trying to find the Carthage Museum when two men approach her. One of them pulls out a gun. Jake thinks fast and throws sand in their eyes.
Pocket sand.
And the two run off, with Amy taking out one of the men with a well-timed throw of a metal serving tray she picks up off a merchant's table. Then Jake steals a boat, and the two speed along the coast towards Tunis. But Pierce's men also steal a boat and follow them. Once they're out of sight of civilians, the gunman opens fire. Jake and Amy jump overboard and swim to shore, hidden by the darkness of the night. They run into Dan and Atticus, and they share some pizza together before heading to Dr. Rosenblum's place. There they find a suspicious sight, Olivia Cahill's notebook. It appears Pierce's men took Dr. Rosenblum. At Trilon Labs, Nellie is working hard to maintain her cover as Dr. Gormy when she is handed the position of lead scientist of her lab. Back at the hotel in Tunis, all they can do is more research and wait to hear from Pierce in the meantime. They're interrupted by a news broadcast about Amy and Dan, how Amy is the head of their evil operation, luring boys into her web. She wants to send Jake and Atticus home, again, and it annoys me how much she's constantly flipping back and forth this book.
Oh my God, pull yourself together!
Jake and Atticus want to stay, yet she keeps insisting she knows better when they have been involved for some time now. Plus, with their dad wrapped up in all this, they have to see it through to the end at least. So Amy takes a shower and then gets a call from Attleboro. Ian thinks the reporters drugged the interviewees to get them to say what they want. Jonah advises Amy to give the reporters something to chew on. When she heads back into the room, Jake is packing. Him and his brother will stay at their dad's place. Atticus updates them on Olivia's journal, where he finds a connection to Plato. Then, Amy gets a call from the hotel manager trying to get her to leave her room. Jake opens the curtains to reveal police and Pierce's men waiting below. They sneak out along the edge of the building as someone begins trying to break down the door. In Attleboro, Pony has been trying to hack into Founders Media's servers with little success. The others haven't come up with much in their research either. Nellie asks him to find out more about Trilon Labs, and he hacks their system. We learn they only officially have 57 employees, but Nellie noted hundreds. Blueprints reveal a basement with only one access point.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's weird.
Nellie thanks him and he goes back to trying to breach Founders Media. Back with the Cahills, they make it to a hotel roof access ladder just as police break into their room. From the roof, they jump to the next building over. Atticus barely makes it out, but Amy catches him, and with the others, pulls the young Rosenblum up. There's little time to celebrate as a helicopter demands they stop resisting. They continue to jump from roof to roof, approaching the Medina. From there, Dan uses his eidetic memory to guide them through the maze of streets. But Amy gets taken by Pierce's men, one of whom points a gun at her. She realizes they won't kill her because they need to make it look like an accident. She asks them to let Mark Rosenblum go, but they don't know who she is talking about. She backs away and Jake comes flying out of the dark, attacking. Dan and Atticus take out one guy, Amy grabs their taser and takes out another, and together they flee. They lose them and Amy gets an idea. She asks Dan to take them to Bab al-Bar, which is one of the famous gates in Tunis. After making a few phone calls, her and the others follow Dan. Jake causes a diversion but is caught by Pierce's men, who drag Jake along with them as they chase the children. When they arrive at the gate, reporters pop out, surrounding them, demanding answers. Amy tells them they should be looking into the person who hired the men and kidnapped Rosenblum, J. Rutherford Pierce. When it's over, for now, Jake gets upset at Amy being so reckless and possibly endangering his father, but Atticus stops them, telling them he knows where Mark and the Silphium are. At the Tunis library, Atticus explains the page their dad was looking at and how it connects to the line the 20th Hafsid claims to keep the testament of the failed Strategoi. He goes on to elaborate that the Hafsid was a dynasty, and the 20th Caliph was a man named Abu Umar Uthman ben Abul Hassan Muhammad. Uthman may have been in possession of Plato's supposedly unwritten third dialogue, Hermocrates. He says while the legend of Atlantis has some sort of ancient alien superpower is far from the truth, Atlantis as a kingdom that was wiped out thousands of years ago is much more possible. Their dad must have run off to do more research after seeing Olivia's notes. He wasn't kidnapped. Atticus then says they can find Dr. Rosenblum and the Silphium in the same place, the island of the Athenian. Plato was the Athenian.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
The Rosenblums leave to their dad's place to look for clues and texted Amy to meet them at the Carthage Museum. She goes to get Dan, but instead finds his brochure for different camps, programs, and schools. She's heartbroken to see him already planning his life away from her. When he shows up, she pretends she didn't see anything. When they meet the Rosenblums, the boys show the Cahills the note they found. Apparently, their dad was to meet with the Dr. Abdallah, and so they called ahead and set up their own meeting. Dr. Abdallah shows them the 15th century artifacts he had shown their father, and Atticus goes through some translated books written by Uthman. It goes on about how he had met a man possessing the Hermocrates and how Atlantis was once known by another name, Tartessos. Amy pulls out Olivia's notebook and goes to a page with an illustration of a 4th century BCE map. On it, she finds Tartessos in modern-day Spain. With April May, she's been busy trying to find out more on Pierce and how he came out of nowhere from being a nobody. Then she finds Pony trying to find his way into her systems and decided to message him. Unable to get in touch with Ian, Hamilton, or Jonah, Pony responds. April May just wants to know who the real bad guy is in all this. Back in Tunisia, the gang leave the country by boat and then seaplane to avoid the media and the police. The plan is to land off the coast of Spain and be picked up by another boat. Along the way, Atticus has uncovered more, like how a guy named Richard Freund theorized that Atlantis was built along the coast, in an old bay, and was wiped out by a tsunami that eventually became marshland. This marshland was made a national park by Spain. His evidence is some ground-penetrating radar scans that hint at something being down there. In the quiet plane ride, Dan thinks about how he caught Amy looking in his backpack and knows she saw the brochures, but he's angry at her, not for snooping, but thinking about how she is his only connection to the family and he doesn't want to part with her. They arrive in southern Spain and drive to an archaeological camp to find their Dr. Rosenblum. When Amy confronts Mark, he is not happy to see her, yelling up at her about how they're a dangerous influence on his children. Amy asks about the silphium, and he says they uncovered 2 jars of silphium seeds, but he's already sent them ahead. One to Tunis, and the other to the Svalbard seed bank. Amy and Dan leave then, with Amy telling Jake that him and Atticus can leave it to them now. He even yells at his children to stay, but Jake defends Amy and Dan, and together with Atticus, they run to join the Cahills. They're heading back to Tunisia. On the drive, Amy calls their pilot to ready the plane and grab some supplies. In Delaware, Nellie is hiding out in the bathrooms until the employees leave Trilon Labs. Reminded me of the time Amy and Dan did the same thing in Venice. Anyway, she sneaks around the building looking for the secret entrance but can't find anything. She follows an employee to a vending machine, and when the scientist leaves, Nellie investigates it. She cannot figure it out, and a guard asks her if she needs help. That's when she notices the red A on the machine that matched the guard's ID, marking him as someone with higher clearance than her own D rank. That's when she comes up with the plan. Back with the Cahills, everyone is resting below decks as they wait for their plane. All except for Amy, who takes the boat keys and throws them overboard for some reason. Jake shows up, and the two talk about Atlantis when Amy confesses she's leaving for Svalbard on her own. Jake wants to go, but she tells him she doesn't love him, then dives over the side of the boat. The seaplane scoops her up, and as the others yell for her and Dan even dives into the water calling for Amy, she has the plane continue on its course. Back with Nellie, she's visiting Fisk Cahill, bringing him a care package of home-cooked food. She noted how he seems much healthier than Dan and Amy described, and he's behaving strangely when Nellie tells him about Amy sending the others back to the States. He even roughly grabs Nellie when she gets up. He cries with uncertainty, and then falls asleep. Nellie goes to see Dr. Jeffrey Callender in his office, passing a woman who bumps her as she exits the office. Nellie notes the ID card with the red A on her bag and speaks with the doctor. He says Fisk isn't doing well and could succumb to the stress any day. This shakes Nellie, worried about Dan and Amy growing up in this life. When she sees the woman from earlier, Nellie realizes what she has to do and hopes she can be strong for the kids.
She's an icon.
On Spitsbergen Island, Amy is trekking through the snow towards the global seed vault. She could have been taken by a taxi from the airport but wants to avoid having anyone else involved as well as avoid paparazzi and hitmen. She uses a computer program designed by Pony to get into this global seed vault and find the seeds. She goes to the refrigerated seed storage area and finds the silphium seeds as one of the Pierce's men shows up. She throws her backpack and makes a beeline for the doors, but another of Pierce's men comes out of nowhere and stops her. They destroy the seeds and lock her in the vault. She does try finding a way out several times to no avail. She cannot access the refrigeration controls, and the computers inside cannot open the doors, but she can use it to contact Pony if he responds in time. She sends out an urgent 911 and begins waiting. As she succumbs to the early stages of frostbite, Pony finally responds. She taps out a reply and he opens the door. Amy barely has the strength to get out of the room. She assesses the situation and realizes that the thugs destroyed the thermostat and took most of her supplies. Delirious and freezing, Amy wanders out into the frozen landscape. She is seeing images of Dan, then Jake, then Evan as her mind plays tricks on her. With Kara Pierce, she catches her father spiking their protein shakes and worries then that he's giving Jolt more than her. When Pierce leaves the kitchen, she switches the labels on their shakes. Amy awakens in a hotel room in Oslo. Dan saved her. He throws her a packet of silphium seeds. Jake and Atticus retrieved it while Dan went after her. They argue, with Dan yelling at Amy for going off alone and Amy yelling at Dan for wanting to leave. He tosses his sister a new phone and tells her Pony says sorry for not being there. Amy's confused because if she wasn't talking to Pony, then who?
Curiouser and curiouser.
When Dan leaves, Amy notices the fireplace is full of burnt brochures. She gets an email from Jake, who agrees they don't have feelings for each other, but can continue to work together. She initially typed out a reply telling him she likes when they're together, and she said what she said out of anger, but then deletes it and instead searches the internet for the Riven crystal in Guatemala. In Delaware, Nellie waits until closing to break into Trilon Labs, using a set of lockpicks to get inside. She nearly gets caught by a guard, but narrowly avoids them. Then she makes her way to the vending machine. There, she uses the key card she snatched off the woman at the Calendar Institute to open a secret entrance and step inside. After searching a few labs that are busy constructing the serum, she is yanked into a room from behind. Nellie tries attacking her attacker, and when she turns around to face them, she's surprised to see Sammy Murad. Together they continue searching to find out more about Pierce's plan, and Nellie sees a room with huge tanks for the serum to be stored in and distributed. She realizes he isn't just planning to mass produce the serum, but to do so to build an army of his own. Amy and Jake were really all over the place this book, which isn't surprising since they are young, but you would think a world-ending crisis could get them to stay focused on the objective at least. Amy is scared to lose anyone, so she's pushing everyone away, which only serves to prolong your suffering. Shared joy is twice the joy, but shared pain is half the pain. Let your family be there. That's what family is for. I really don't understand why they can't call on the forces of the Cahill family. Even just a small portion of active agents could get them military connections, politicians, gadgets, research, and more. So why can't they utilize these powers? I don't understand. I also say that because I miss seeing the power and influences of the Cahill branches, getting casual historical figure name drops. This series feels really light on the history aspect compared to the earlier series. Cahill's vs. Vespers taught me things I didn't know as an adult, and I've yet to have that feeling with Unstoppable. That's a small gripe though, because even with that setback, they're still giving us a fair amount of information to learn, and I can only imagine how it must have felt for younger readers. Also, it bugs me that the cover had nothing to do with this story, or did I miss something? I figured they would at least go to Britannia, get 2 ingredients this book, but no, they just happened to go to Norway at the very end, and not even to a historical site, but just to the Global Sea Vault. Anyway, that's all my thoughts on this book. I'll catch you all when I recap Countdown. Don't forget to leave a like, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe. Bye!
Bye!